Okay, everybody, in today's video we're going to be looking at the early war Type 99 Arisaka and just kind of going over the early history of the rifle and mainly what Nagoya was doing with it. Kokura and the other arsenals like Toyo Kogyo had some slightly different things going on early on when they made them, and we're going to talk about some of those differences. But first, let's talk a little bit about the history of the Type 99 rifle as a whole. So, originally it was envisioned to be a long rifle, and then they would have an accompanying carbine, but they found in testing that 7.7, the round they were wanting to adopt, was a bit too tough of a round as a carbine, and they tried all sorts of different things, like weird-looking muzzle brakes on the end of the rifles, and they were just trying things to try to get a carbine to work, but it never would, so what they decided to adopt was a short rifle, initially envisioned as a cavalry short rifle, and then the infantry would have the long rifles. But when they started going into production in 1940 and 41, they quickly realized that the short rifles just overall the superior platform for infantry and cavalry, and while you do lose some velocity and accuracy with the shorter barrel, it also makes the gun lighter and is just all around better, which the U.S. and Britain had kind of figured that out in the early 1900s with the SMLE and '03 Springfield, but Japan finally came around to the concept in 1941 and began mass producing the Type 99 short rifle. And Nagoya and Toyo Kogyo would start out with production, and it would start out with Nagoya being the 0 series of rifles with no series mark. That's what this one is. And then they would go on to series 1, 2, 3, and just so on. And each arsenal would get a lot of series numbers and markings. Nagoya had 1 to 12, and but they skipped 9 because they sent that one out to a different group of arsenals to complete. And yeah, these would be made by Nagoya, and that's pretty much my intro to it. Chambered in 7 by 58 Japanese. And now let's get into a little bit of the more minute differences between series of the guns. Alright, we've rearranged some stuff, and we're going to get into the differences between the early series guns, which there aren't many differences, but there are a couple small ones to note. So, starting off with the 0 series, the first 100,000 rifles made would not have a series marking for Nagoya, and they'll just have the serial number and the arsenal mark. And these rifles will have dust covers fitted, monopods fitted, chrome line bores, chrome line bolt face, cupped butt plate, fully adjustable sight with anti-aircraft wings on it, and they'll also be marked with a MUM and a Type 99 marking. And this one's kind of our roughest example of the group, but it's kind of got the most character to it because it's got some kind of burn or markings to it that this rifle went through something rough. It's also got initials carved in it, LTC, and it's kind of a more interesting example. But on the 0 series rifles, of course, you'll have your monopod, folds down like this, and it was designed as just to give troops a way to brace the rifle, and sort of a early version of having bipods on rifles. And your bore is going to be chrome lined. You have a cleaning rod that's retained by a button on the bottom. This button right here. Then you can pull it out, and it's just held in right there. You'll have 3 screws on the front band, and later variations they'd switch to 2 screws. Then with the last ditch ones they'd just be welded on. But on all these early ones you'll have 3 screws in the front. And for the first 9,000 guns Nagoya made, the front sight will be a little bit shorter, than the rest of them, which I don't know quite why they changed that or had that originally, but the first 9,000 guns will have a shorter front sight, and this is one of those first 9,000. And yeah, then when they got into the first series, things would pretty much stay the same. This example does not have the monopod, but does have the serial matching dust cover. And you can see this one's in a pretty pristine condition, and still has all of its bluing intact. But things would stay the same with this. Your rear sight or front sight would get taller past the first 9,000 guns of the 0 series. And then production stays pretty much the same through to the second series, which is what this one is. This one also lacking its monopod, but does have the serial matching dust cover. And a bit of an interesting story with this one is I got the dust cover for this one before I got the rifle, and I picked up the dust cover because it was a nice condition one, just planned to have a spare, and I found the rifle at the show that had the same serial number, which is pretty unbelievable. But my guess was, you know, 2 different parties probably separated it at an estate sale, and I just managed to find them and match them back up. And then, so things won't really change with the second series. There are some small differences, one of which I'll mention is the rear sight base would change so that the rear sight cannot go forward under recoil, which you can tell early guns like that because they'll often have marks on the handguard from where shooting the rear sight slid forward. So in this example I can show you that. The rear sight can slide forward like this, and if you have your wings still up like this, it'll put a big mark on your handguard. So that was an early flaw that they'd fix. And then into the third series, things will stay pretty much the same, but later in the third series, the splice on the buttstock will change to going at a bit of a diagonal line, and it will go above the sling swivel on this side. But on these early ones, the split goes straight through the sling swivel. But other than that, it mostly stays the same. Still have your monopod on these, and it folds down, clicks into place. And going over accessories for the rifle, they'd all use the standard Type 30 bayonet. This is an early nice one made by Nagoya. And then a little bit later on, more into 1942 and 43, they would switch up to this kind of straight guard style. And this is one made by Howa under Nagoya supervision. And you also have these plastic muzzle covers. This one's a reproduction, but you can find some originals like it. And it just slides on the front here, and then you can rotate it on. That's how the muzzle covers would work on those. And word of caution is, if you're looking for an original muzzle cover, I'd pretty much avoid all of them, because most of them are going to be reproductions and fakes, just because it's such an easy thing to fake. And so for stripper clips, you can use Swedish ones, but they have the original Japanese ones would have a drain hole in the back. Is one way you can identify them, and they'd be brass or steel. But the Swedish ones work 7.7 by 58. And yeah, after the third series, things would start to change. Like the fourth series was mainly the same, but you'd start seeing monopods get eliminated at the end of that series. And then you continue on into the fifth series, more and more changes. But so this is kind of what to expect from early guns. And all these have chrome line bores, all these have mums, all these have aircraft wings, and would originally all have monopods and dust covers. Also, one thing to show off is how tight your dust cover is on a matching rifle that has a matching dust cover compared to non-matching. It's very rattly and loose, and that kind of demonstrates how hand-fit all these rifles were. These weren't mass-produced in the same way that U.S. rifles were, and Japan just didn't have that capability to make everything 100% parts interchangeable. And, yeah, that's a overview of Nagoya production rifles. If you want any more information on them, check out the book, Military Rifles of Japan by Honeycutt. And, yeah, I don't have too much else to say about them, so let's get into shooting them some. Alright, so we're about to start shooting, but first, I just want to show, so everybody knows what I'm talking about. This is the Nagoya Arsenal symbol, and that's the rifles we were talking about today. And, Nagoya was the main producer of Type 99s, and, the, series markings are right here. The ones we're talking about today are 1 to 3, and they also had 0 before that. But Nagoya would go ahead and produce all the way up to 12. And yeah, that's the 12th series, but they hardly made any of those. But yeah, so that's just what the Nagoya Arsenal stamp looks like for anybody who didn't know. We're going to shoot the second series down here at 100 yards. That's all of them. Alright, here's our group, and we got 3 right here, and then these 2 off here. I'm guessing that was just for me, because it's the first time I've shot this particular rifle, so still getting used to the trigger pull on it, but that's the group, and this one's really good, just that I managed to string those 2 off, but pretty good group out of this one. Alright, we're going to let up 5 rounds into the 3rd series Nagoya, and this one does have a non-matching dust cover, so it is going to rattle a bit. It's all 5 of them. Alright, here's our group with this one, and it's about in the same spot with the 3rd series rifle, but yeah, another pretty decent group overall. Alright, we're going to shoot 5 out of this one that's got the burn marks or whatever the heck it's got going on this one. Why the stock's so dark, except for, you know, parts that aren't burnt or whatever happened to this one. I don't think I've shown it off yet. The way the safety functions on these is you just push in with your palm and rotate it, and then that locks your bolt and disconnects your sear. But this is the 0 series rifle, so it should hit a little bit higher up. That's all 5 of them. Alright, this is the rifle that has the burn marks on the stock, and see, it shot a little bit higher because of the shorter rear sight that was on the first 9,000 guns, and you know, it's a pretty decent group out of it. And one thing I will say is if you have a gun with burn marks on it, make sure to carefully inspect it before you go firing it, because sometimes the metal could get damaged with extreme heat. But yeah, pretty good group out of this one. Alright, we figured we'd do these last 5 rounds shooting off of the Monopod, and also realized in between takes that we've forgotten to bring our shooting glasses the whole day. But load up 5 rounds, 100 yards, and just kind of see how effective was the Monopod on these. That's all of them. You can see that's from this as the next group, that's a lot better than just freehanding it. Group only opens up really not at all. It's actually pretty effective.